Imagine the hush of ancient Egypt at night, the Nile gliding silently under the moon, temples looming like stone giants, and priests whispering chants that seemed to ripple through eternity. In the midst of this world, one figure stood above all others in the realm of wisdom: Thoth, the god of forbidden knowledge. Thoth was no ordinary deity. Depicted with the head of an ibis, or sometimes a baboon, he was the divine scribe, the cosmic librarian, the one who measured the heavens and recorded the laws of creation. If Ra was the sun that gave life, and Osiris the promise of rebirth, then Thoth was the mind behind it all, the intellect that kept the universe from collapsing into chaos. He was the keeper of balance, the inventor of writing, the master of magic, and the guardian of secrets too dangerous for ordinary mortals. The Egyptians believed that Thoth held formulas of resurrection, spells of transformation, and wisdom that could bridge the mortal and divine. His teachings were said to be inscribed in the legendary Book of Thoth, a text so powerful it could grant mastery over the heavens, the ability to speak with animals, and even the power to bypass death itself. Yet the same legends warned that misuse of this knowledge would bring ruin, driving the unworthy into madness. To the priests who served him, Thoth was not just a god, but a principle, the embodiment of wisdom itself. They saw him as the balance between order and chaos, the one who weighed truth against falsehood, ensuring that the scales of Mat, the cosmic justice, remained steady. Without Thoth, the stars would lose their rhythm, the Nile its flood, and humanity its path. Thoth was not only the god of wisdom, but the god of forbidden wisdom. He was the one who decided what humanity could know and what must remain hidden. His priests became the guardians of this boundary, rationing knowledge like treasure, ensuring that only fragments were revealed while the deepest truths stayed locked away. Humor sneaks in when we imagine Thoth watching humanity's endless curiosity, amused by our attempts to turn eternity into a recipe. Perhaps he smiled at the sight of mortals preparing for immortality with jars of pickled fish, sandals, and furniture, as if eternity were a camping trip. The Egyptians blended cosmic philosophy with practical needs, reminding us that even the path to divinity required a touch of humanity. Thoth's presence in myth reminds us that wisdom is not chaos but order, not superstition but science of the spirit. The truth he guarded was simple yet profound. Immortality is not seized but earned through balance, reverence, and the awakening of the soul. And now, before you drift off into dreams filled with ibis-headed gods and cosmic scrolls, don't forget, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments from where you're watching, preferably not from a secret chamber guarded by cats. Long before Egypt's pyramids pierced the desert sky, whispers of a sacred order began to stir. These were the first priests of Thoth, guardians of wisdom, too powerful to be shared freely. Their origin is wrapped in myth, but the story always begins the same way. Thoth himself, the ibis-headed god of knowledge, chose mortals to protect the balance of the cosmos. At first, they were scribes, men who could inscribe hieroglyphs when most of Egypt could not read a single symbol. Writing was seen as magic, and those who mastered it became custodians of sacred texts. They recorded the laws of Mat, the cycles of the Nile, and the movements of stars. Over time, their role grew. They were no longer just scribes, but interpreters of cosmic rhythms, mediators between gods and mortals. The Nile itself shaped their duties. Each flood was measured, each cycle compared to the heavens. The priests saw the river not simply as water, but as a mirror of the stars, proof that earthly life was tied to cosmic order. Their observations became calendars, guiding agriculture and rituals, binding society to the universe's rhythm. Temples dedicated to Thoth rose in Hermopolis, his sacred city. Here, priests gathered to study, debate, and preserve wisdom. They trained initiates, teaching them to read, to chant, and to guard secrets. The priesthood became a lineage, passed down through generations, each new scribe inheriting the burden of forbidden knowledge. Humor sneaks in when we imagine one of these early priests tasked with charting the stars, accidentally dropping his reed pen into the Nile and watching it float away. The first cosmic calculation lost 2 clumsy fingers. Even in the origins of sacred duty, human imperfection was never far away. The origin of Thoth's priests was not about wealth or power. It was about responsibility, the duty to guard truths too vast for ordinary minds, to preserve balance in a world that teetered between order and chaos. From humble scribes by the river to guardians of cosmic law, the priesthood of Thoth emerged, carrying scrolls beneath their arms, their eyes fixed on the stars, their purpose eternal. In the hush of Egypt's temples, not everyone could walk the path of Thoth. Becoming one of his priests was not a matter of birthright or wealth. It was a matter of discipline, intellect, and a willingness to surrender ordinary life for the burden of forbidden wisdom. Candidates were often selected young, chosen from families of scribes, or those who showed unusual aptitude for learning. Literacy was rare, and the ability to read hieroglyphs was seen as a divine gift. A boy who could memorize complex chants or calculate the stars might be quietly marked by elders as a potential initiate. Some were chosen through dreams, where visions of Thoth appeared, guiding priests to the next guardian of wisdom. Training was rigorous. The chosen were taught silence, patience, and precision. They learned to copy texts without error, to recite spells without hesitation, and to observe the heavens with unwavering focus. Mistakes were not tolerated. A single mispronounced word could alter the meaning of a ritual, and a misplaced symbol could distort cosmic balance. The selection process was also moral. Priests were expected to embody Mat, the principle of truth and balance. Those who showed greed, arrogance, or carelessness were dismissed. To guard forbidden knowledge required not only intellect, but purity of intent. The chosen had to prove they would protect wisdom, not exploit it. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a nervous candidate asked to remain silent for days as part of his training, accidentally sneezing in the temple and breaking the vow. Even the path to sacred duty was peppered with human imperfection. Those who passed the tests became initiates, stepping into a life of secrecy and discipline. They were no longer ordinary citizens. They were guardians of scrolls, interpreters of cosmic rhythms, and mediators between gods and mortals. To be chosen as a priest of Thoth was not a privilege, but a burden, the burden of carrying truths too vast for the world, truths that had to be hidden until humanity was ready. Thus, the priests of Thoth were chosen not by chance, but by destiny, selected for their intellect, discipline, and devotion. They became the keepers of forbidden wisdom, walking silently through temple corridors, their eyes fixed on the stars, their purpose eternal. To step into the priesthood of Thoth was not a simple appointment, it was a transformation. Initiation was designed to strip away the ordinary self and awaken a mind capable of carrying forbidden wisdom. The process was secretive, layered with ritual, and deliberately intimidating. Candidates were led into temple corridors where silence pressed like stone. They fasted, meditated, and were tested in endurance. Some were asked to spend nights alone in dark chambers, surrounded by hieroglyphs that told cosmic stories. The idea was not to frighten them, but to teach them that wisdom required patience, discipline, and the ability to face the unknown without fear. They memorized chants, practiced writing sacred texts, and learned to recite spells with flawless precision. A single mispronunciation could change the meaning of a ritual, so accuracy was treated as sacred. They were also taught astronomy, medicine, and philosophy, because to serve Thoth meant to understand both the heavens and the human body. The most symbolic part of initiation was the ritual of symbolic death and rebirth. Initiates were told they must die to their old selves, leaving behind ego, greed, and ignorance, and be reborn as guardians of wisdom. Only then could they be trusted with secrets that touched eternity. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a nervous initiate asked to remain silent for days, accidentally sneezing in the temple and breaking the vow. Even in the most solemn rituals, human imperfection found its way in. Those who succeeded emerged as priests of Thoth, sworn to secrecy, guardians of scrolls, and interpreters of cosmic rhythms. Their initiation was not just a ceremony. It was a lifelong reminder that forbidden knowledge was a burden, not a privilege, and that only the disciplined could carry it without falling into chaos. The priests of Thoth did not simply guard scrolls. They guarded boundaries. Their greatest responsibility was deciding what truths could be shared with the people and what must remain hidden. To the farmers, artisans, and merchants of Egypt, religion was a tapestry of myths, gods who fought, kings who ruled, and rituals that promised safety in the afterlife. But behind those stories lay deeper meanings, truths too vast and too dangerous for ordinary minds. The public was told of Osiris's resurrection, but only priests knew the ritual formulas that symbolized consciousness transcending death. The masses saw the stars as decorations in the night sky, while priests charted their movements with precision, aligning temples to cosmic rhythms. Medicine was presented as herbs and charms, but priests studied anatomy, energy, and balance, treating the body as a system of forces. Why hide this? Because knowledge was power. If ordinary people understood that immortality was not a gift from rulers but a discipline of the soul, fear would lose its grip. If they realized that the stars could predict cycles, kings would lose their monopoly on divine authority. Forbidden knowledge was hidden not because it was false, but because it threatened control. Scrolls were locked away in temple chambers, guarded by oaths of silence. Initiates were warned that revealing secrets to the unworthy would bring punishment from both gods and men. The wisdom was encoded in allegory, disguised in myth, and rationed carefully. To the public, religion was ritual. To the priests, it was science of the spirit. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a villager asking a priest why the stars twinkle, only to be told a charming story about playful gods, while the priest secretly holds a scroll explaining atmospheric refraction. The gap between public myth and hidden truth was wide, but it kept society stable. Thus, forbidden knowledge remained cloaked in secrecy. The priests of Thoth carried it silently, revealing only fragments, ensuring that the deepest truths of life, death, and the cosmos stayed hidden until humanity was ready to awaken. To To the priests of Thoth, magic was not a trick or illusion. It was the language of the universe. They believed that every word, every symbol, every ritual carried power to shape reality. Magic was the bridge between the mortal and the divine, the tool through which forbidden wisdom could be applied. Thoth himself was seen as the inventor of spells, the one who gave humanity the ability to speak sacred words that echoed through eternity. His priests studied these formulas with precision, memorizing chants that aligned their minds with cosmic rhythms. A single syllable spoken correctly could summon protection, heal the sick, or open the way to visions of the afterlife. Magic was woven into daily rituals. Priests inscribed hieroglyphs onto amulets, believing the symbols carried divine energy. They performed ceremonies in hidden chambers, using incense, sound, and movement to shift the balance of unseen forces. To outsiders, these acts looked like superstition, but to the priests, they were science of the spirit, precise applications of cosmic law. The role of magic extended to medicine and astronomy. Healing was not just herbs, but incantations that restored harmony to the body. Observing the stars was not only calculation, but invocation, treating celestial movements as messages from the divine. Magic was the thread that tied every discipline together, making wisdom practical, powerful, and alive. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a priest carefully chanting a spell to summon divine clarity, only to be interrupted by a temple cat knocking over a lamp. Even in the most solemn rituals, the universe had its own sense of timing. For the priests of Thoth, magic was not entertainment, but responsibility. It was the means by which forbidden knowledge was expressed, guarded, and applied. To wield it required discipline, reverence, and secrecy. In their hands, magic was the heartbeat of wisdom, the hidden force that kept the cosmos in balance. Hidden deep within the temples of Egypt were scrolls and inscriptions that ordinary citizens would never see. These sacred texts were reserved exclusively for the priests of Thoth, written in complex hieroglyphs and coded language that only initiates could interpret. To the public, hieroglyphs were decorative symbols carved on walls. To the priests, they were living words, each carrying layers of meaning and power. The texts contained rituals, astronomical calculations, and formulas of transformation. They described the journey of the soul after death, the alignment of temples with stars, and the chants that could summon divine protection. Some scrolls were said to hold instructions for contacting other realms, bridging the mortal and the eternal. These writings were not simply records. They were tools, meant to be used carefully and only by those trained to handle their weight. Access was tightly controlled. Scrolls were locked in chambers, guarded by oaths of silence. Initiates spent years learning to copy them without error, for a single misplaced symbol could distort the meaning of an entire ritual. The texts were treated as living beings, sacred companions that demanded respect. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a young scribe nervously copying a scroll, only to smudge ink across the papyrus and panic at the thought of accidentally inventing a new cosmic law. Even in the solemnity of sacred duty, human clumsiness was never far away. For the priests of Thoth, these texts were more than words. They were the heartbeat of forbidden wisdom, the record of truths too vast for the public. To read them was to step into the mind of the divine, to glimpse the architecture of the cosmos. And so, the sacred texts remained hidden, guarded by priests who carried their secrets silently through the corridors of eternity. Among all the scrolls and sacred writings guarded by the priests, none carried more mystery than the legendary Book of Thoth, said to be written by the god himself. It was believed to contain the most powerful secrets ever recorded, formulas to command the heavens, speak with animals, heal the sick, and even bypass death itself. To possess it was to hold the keys to eternity. But with such power came peril. Egyptian lore warned that anyone unworthy who read the book would be cursed with madness, doomed to wander between worlds, unable to distinguish reality from illusion. The priests taught that wisdom was not simply knowledge, but balance. To misuse the book was to break that balance, unleashing chaos upon both the reader and the world. The scrolls were said to be hidden in temple chambers, sealed with rituals, or buried with priests so they could travel into eternity. Only initiates who had passed the trials of discipline and silence were permitted to glimpse fragments of its teachings. Even then, they were warned that the book was not a tool for ambition, but a burden of responsibility. Legends tell of seekers who tried to steal the book, hoping to gain immortality or divine power. Their stories always ended in ruin, visions that drove them mad, voices that haunted them, or misused spells that turned blessings into curses. The priests used these tales as cautionary lessons, reminding initiates that forbidden wisdom was not a prize, but a test. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a reckless thief opening the book expecting riches, only to find pages of complex star charts and chants he couldn't pronounce, realizing too late that eternity came with homework. The Book of Thoth remained the most guarded treasure of the priesthood, a symbol of wisdom too vast for ordinary minds. Its dangers were not in the words themselves, but in the temptation to use them without reverence. For the priests, it was the ultimate reminder that knowledge is power, and power without balance is destruction. The priests of Thoth understood that symbols were more than decoration. They were living codes of power. To the ordinary eye, hieroglyphs carved on temple walls told stories of gods and kings. But to the initiated, certain marks carried hidden meanings, reserved only for those trained to read them. These symbols were the secret language of forbidden wisdom. Some were geometric circles, triangles, and spirals that represented cycles of the cosmos. Others were animal forms, like the ibis for clarity of thought or the baboon for vigilance, each tied to Thoth's divine aspects. There were also abstract signs, combinations of lines and curves that encoded formulas of balance, transformation, and immortality. To the public, they looked like art. To the priests, they were instructions for aligning with cosmic law. Symbols were used in rituals, inscribed on amulets, and hidden in sacred texts. A single glyph could change the meaning of a chant, turning it from a prayer into a formula of power. Priests memorized these signs carefully, knowing that misuse could disrupt the delicate balance they were sworn to protect. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a novice priest carving a symbol slightly crooked on a temple wall, only to be scolded by elders for nearly turning a cosmic formula into a doodle. Even in the solemnity of sacred duty, precision mattered, and mistakes were not taken lightly. For the priests of Thoth, symbols were the bridge between the human and the divine. They carried truths to vast four words, condensed into shapes that whispered of eternity, hidden from the public, guarded by oaths. These symbols became the silent language of forbidden wisdom, etched into stone and memory, waiting for those worthy enough to understand. Deep within the temples of Egypt, behind walls carved with gods and guarded by silence, the priests of Thoth carried out rituals that the public would never witness. These ceremonies were not for spectacle or crowds. They were performed in hidden chambers, away from the eyes of ordinary citizens, where forbidden wisdom could be practiced without interruption. The rituals often began with purification. Priests fasted, bathed, and dressed in linen robes, believing that the body had to be cleansed before the spirit could align with cosmic forces. Incense filled the air, its smoke curling upward like prayers, while chants echoed softly against stone walls. Each sound was deliberate, each movement precise, for even the smallest error could disrupt the balance they sought to maintain. Inside these chambers, symbols were drawn, amulets placed, and scrolls read aloud. Some rituals invoked protection, others sought visions of the afterlife, and still others attempted to align the soul with the rhythms of the stars. The ceremonies were layered with meaning, blending astronomy, medicine, and philosophy into acts that looked mystical but were treated as exact sciences of the spirit. The secrecy was essential. To reveal these rituals to the public would risk misunderstanding or misuse. Ordinary citizens were given myths and festivals, while the priests guarded the deeper practices that touched eternity. Only initiates who had passed trials of silence and discipline were permitted to witness the hidden ceremonies. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a temple cat wandering into a ritual chamber, pawing at incense burners, while priests tried to maintain solemnity. Even in the most sacred spaces, life had its way of reminding them of imperfection. For the priests of Thoth, these secret rituals were not entertainment, but responsibility. They were the heartbeat of forbidden wisdom, performed in chambers where silence was law, where knowledge was guarded, and where the cosmos itself seemed to listen. Hidden from the world, they carried out their duties with reverence, ensuring that the balance of life, death, and eternity remained intact. For the priests of Thoth, the mysteries of existence did not end with the human body. They believed life was a cycle, death a doorway, and the afterlife a continuation of consciousness. Their teachings went far beyond the myths told to the public. They carried formulas and philosophies that explained the soul's journey in precise detail. Life, they taught, was preparation. Every action, every thought, every ritual was a rehearsal for the moment when the soul would leave the body. Death was not an end, but a transition, a passage into realms where the spirit was weighed against the principle of truth, balance, and justice. The famous image of the scales, where the heart was weighed against a feather, was more than a metaphor. To the priests, it was a cosmic law, a reminder that the soul's purity determined its path. The afterlife was described as layered. Ordinary souls entered Duat, the shadowy realm of trials, while the enlightened could ascend to join the stars, becoming part of the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. The priests believed that through rituals, chants, and secret knowledge, they could guide the soul safely through these realms, ensuring its rebirth or ascension. Scrolls hidden in temple chambers contained instructions for navigating the afterlife, maps of the soul's journey, spells to ward off dangers, and formulas to align with divine forces. These texts were not shared with the public, who were given simplified myths instead. Only initiates were trusted with the full knowledge, for misuse could lead to chaos. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a priest explaining the afterlife in solemn detail, only for a villager to interrupt with a practical question about whether they could bring their favorite sandals along. Even in cosmic matters, humanity's everyday concerns found their way in. For the priests of Thoth, knowledge of life, death, and the afterlife was the core of forbidden wisdom. It was not about fear, but about preparation, not about endings, but about continuity. They carried this knowledge silently, guiding souls through eternity, ensuring that balance was preserved and that the rhythm of existence never faltered. For the priests of Thoth, the night sky was not simply a canvas of stars. It was a living map of eternity. They believed the heavens mirrored the rhythms of the earth, and by studying the cosmos, they could understand the laws that governed both mortal life and the divine. Astronomy was not a pastime, but a sacred duty, a way to read the language of the gods. Temples were aligned with celestial events, their corridors designed to catch the light of solstices and equinoxes. The priests charted the movements of planets and stars with astonishing precision, creating calendars that guided agriculture, festivals, and rituals. They saw the rising of Sirius as the herald of the Nile's flood, proof that cosmic rhythms dictated earthly survival. The wisdom extended beyond practical use. The priests taught that the soul itself was tied to the stars, destined to return to the heavens after death. Each constellation was seen as a gateway, each planet a force shaping human destiny. To them, the cosmos was not distant but intimate, a reflection of the divine order that Thoth himself maintained. Scrolls, hidden in temple chambers, contained star charts, formulas for predicting eclipses, and chants that aligned rituals with celestial movements. These texts were guarded fiercely, for they revealed truths that could undermine the authority of kings. If the public knew the stars dictated cycles, rulers could no longer claim divine control over time. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a priest carefully charting the heavens, only for a passing cloud to block his view, forcing him to wait patiently while the cosmos played hide and seek. Even in the pursuit of eternity, the universe had its playful interruptions. For the priests of Thoth, astronomical and cosmic wisdom was the heartbeat of forbidden knowledge. It was not just science, but spirituality, not just observation, but communion. By reading the stars, they believed they were reading the mind of the divine, ensuring that balance between heaven and earth remained unbroken. The wisdom guarded by the priests of Thoth was not hidden out of cruelty, but out of caution. They believed that certain truths about life, death, the cosmos, and the soul were too powerful to be placed in the hands of the unprepared. Knowledge was not simply information, it was energy, and energy misused could unravel the delicate balance of the universe. The public was given myths and rituals that comforted, entertained, and guided daily life. But behind those stories lay deeper meanings, formulas for immortality, maps of the afterlife, and chants that could alter consciousness. To reveal these openly would risk chaos. A farmer might misuse a spell meant for cosmic alignment. A ruler might exploit star charts to claim divine authority. Or an ambitious seeker might attempt immortality without discipline, unleashing madness instead of enlightenment. Forbidden knowledge was also political. Kings and elites depended on fear of death and ignorance of cosmic law to maintain control. If ordinary people realized that the soul was eternal, that the stars dictated cycles, or that rituals could grant visions of eternity, rulers would lose their monopoly on power. The priests guarded wisdom not only to protect humanity, but to preserve hierarchies. Scrolls were locked in chambers, rituals performed in silence, and initiates sworn to secrecy. To break these rules was considered a crime against both gods and society. The priests taught that wisdom was a burden, not a privilege, and only those who had passed trials of discipline and reverence could carry it safely. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a villager asking a priest for the secret of immortality, only to be told a charming story about planting crops in season, a polite way of saying, "Not yet." The gap between public myth and hidden truth was wide, but it kept society stable. Thus, the knowledge remained forbidden. It was not hidden because it was false, but because it was too vast, too dangerous, and too easily misused. The priests of Thoth carried it silently, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to awaken to truths that whispered still in stone and stars. The priests of Thoth lived under strict oaths of silence. To guard forbidden wisdom was not only a sacred duty, but a matter of survival, for the consequences of betrayal were severe. Revealing the hidden texts, rituals, or cosmic formulas to the unworthy was considered a crime against both the gods and society. Punishments varied depending on the severity of the offense. A careless slip, a symbol explained too freely, or a chant overheard might result in expulsion from the priesthood, stripping the offender of status and condemning them to live as an ordinary citizen. But deliberate betrayal, such as attempting to sell sacred knowledge or teach it outside the temple, carried harsher consequences. Some accounts suggest imprisonment, exile, or even execution, for the priests believed that misuse of wisdom could unleash chaos upon the world. The fear of punishment was not only physical but spiritual. Offenders were warned that Thoth himself would curse them, denying their soul safe passage in the afterlife. To betray the secrets was to risk eternal wandering in Duat, the shadowy realm of trials, never to ascend to the stars. This belief kept initiates disciplined, reminding them that silence was not just law but protection. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a nervous novice blurting out a sacred word by accident, only to be shushed so quickly by elders that he spent the rest of the day pretending he had sneezed. Even in the shadow of punishment, human clumsiness found its way in. For the priests of Thoth, punishment was not about cruelty, but about safeguarding balance. Forbidden wisdom was a burden, not a privilege, and to misuse it was to endanger both the cosmos and the soul. Thus, silence was enforced with vigilance, ensuring that the secrets of eternity remained hidden until humanity was ready to awaken. Among the many legends surrounding Thoth's priesthood, none is more intriguing than the supposed link to the Emerald Tablets. These mysterious writings, often attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the Greco-Egyptian figure believed to be a fusion of Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, are said to contain condensed wisdom about the cosmos, transformation, and the eternal nature of the soul. The priests of Thoth were believed to guard texts that echoed the same principles later found in the tablets, as above, so below. The idea that the heavens and the earth mirror one another, and that understanding one reveals the other. This teaching aligned perfectly with the priests' astronomical studies, their rituals of balance, and their belief that the soul's journey reflected cosmic rhythms. The Emerald Tablets also spoke of alchemy, not merely as the transformation of metals, but as the transformation of the self. This mirrors the priests' initiation rituals, where candidates symbolically died to their old selves and were reborn as guardians of wisdom. Both traditions emphasized that true immortality was not physical but spiritual, achieved through discipline and alignment with divine law. Legends suggest that fragments of the tablets may have been inspired by or derived from the hidden scrolls of Thoth's temples. Whether literal or symbolic, the connection lies in the shared themes: eternal life, cosmic harmony, and the responsibility of guarding forbidden knowledge. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a curious initiate expecting the tablets to reveal the secret of turning lead into gold, only to discover pages of dense philosophy reminding him that the real treasure was self-mastery. Even in the pursuit of eternity, wisdom had a way of humbling ambition. For the priests of Thoth, the emerald tablets were not separate from their tradition, but an extension of it, a crystallization of the same truths they had carried in silence for centuries. The connection reminds us that forbidden wisdom was never lost, only transformed, passed down through symbols and stories, waiting for seekers ready to understand. Among the most enduring legends tied to Thoth's priesthood is the mysterious Hall of Records, said to be hidden beneath the sands near the Great Sphinx of Giza. This mythical chamber was believed to contain scrolls, tablets, and cosmic maps, preserving the entire wisdom of ancient Egypt, a library of eternity guarded by the priests of Thoth. The hall was not a public archive. It was imagined as a sacred vault, accessible only to initiates who had passed the trials of silence and discipline. Within its walls, the priests were said to store astronomical charts, texts on the soul's journey, and fragments of the Book of Thoth. To the outside world, the hall was a rumor. To the priesthood, it was the ultimate sanctuary of forbidden knowledge. Legends claim the hall contained records of humanity's origins, the cycles of civilizations, and prophecies of future ages. The priests believed that wisdom was eternal, and so they preserved it in stone and scrolls, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to awaken. Some stories even suggest the hall was designed not just for Egyptians, but for seekers of all ages, a time capsule of cosmic truth. The secrecy was absolute. Priests swore oaths to protect the hall, ensuring that its treasures would never fall into the hands of the unworthy. To reveal its location or contents was considered a betrayal of both gods and humanity. The hall was guarded not only by stone but by silence. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a curious villager asking a priest if the Hall of Records was real, only to be told a vague story about a very large storeroom of scrolls, while the priest silently thought, "If only you knew what's really beneath the sand." For the priests of Thoth, the Hall of Records symbolized their mission to guard wisdom across ages, and to ensure that the knowledge of life, death, and the cosmos would survive until humanity was ready to receive it. The wisdom guarded by Thoth's priests did not remain confined to Egypt's temples. Over centuries, fragments of their teachings seeped into other cultures, shaping what became known as the mystery schools of the ancient world. These schools, in Greece, Rome, and beyond, carried echoes of Egyptian initiation, secrecy, and cosmic philosophy. The Eleusinian mysteries, in Greece, for example, emphasized symbolic death and rebirth, mirroring the initiation rituals of Thoth's priesthood. Candidates were taught that immortality was not physical but spiritual, achieved through discipline and alignment with divine law. This idea was a direct reflection of Egyptian teachings about the soul's journey through death into eternity. In the Pythagorean schools, mathematics and geometry were treated as sacred, not merely practical. This reverence for numbers and symbols echoed the priests' use of glyphs and cosmic patterns to encode wisdom. As above, so below, a principle later crystallized in Hermetic philosophy was rooted in the Egyptian belief that the heavens and earth mirrored one another. The Roman mystery cults, too, carried fragments of Egyptian influence. The worship of Isis, imported from Egypt, became one of the most widespread mystery traditions in the empire. Behind the rituals of Isis lay the hidden hand of Thoth's wisdom, teaching balance, transformation, and eternal life. The priests of Thoth were not merely guardians of their own culture. They became silent architects of spiritual traditions across the Mediterranean. Their emphasis on secrecy, initiation, and cosmic law shaped the very structure of mystery schools, ensuring that forbidden wisdom was preserved in new forms long after Egypt's temples fell silent. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a Greek initiate nervously enduring a ritual of silence, only to discover that the Egyptians had been practicing the same discipline centuries earlier. Proof that even mystery schools had homework copied from older traditions. Thus, the influence of Thoth's priests lived on. Their teachings became the foundation of esoteric traditions carried across cultures, disguised in myths, and reborn in philosophies. The mystery schools were not separate inventions, but branches of the same tree, rooted in Egypt's forbidden wisdom, reaching outward to guide seekers across ages. When Egypt's temples fell silent and its priesthood dissolved under the weight of conquest, the question lingered: did the forbidden wisdom of Thoth vanish, or did it survive in hidden forms? The answer lies in fragments, whispers, and echoes across cultures. The priests themselves believed wisdom was eternal, too vast to be destroyed by armies or time. Scrolls were hidden in chambers, buried with initiates, or carried secretly into other lands. As Egypt declined, its teachings seeped into Greece, inspiring philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato, who spoke of cosmic order and the immortality of the soul. Later, in Rome, the cult of Isis carried Egyptian rituals across the empire, preserving fragments of Thoth's legacy. Hermetic philosophy, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a figure blending Thoth with the Greek Hermes, became another vessel. Its texts, including the Emerald Tablets, echoed Egyptian principles, as above, so below, the idea that the heavens and earth mirror one another. These writings ensured that the wisdom of Egypt lived on, disguised in new language, but rooted in the same truths. Even in the Middle Ages, alchemists claimed to draw from Egyptian sources, interpreting transformation not just as turning metals into gold, but as the refinement of the soul. Renaissance scholars rediscovered Hermetic texts, believing they held the key to ancient wisdom. In each age, the knowledge resurfaced, adapted to new contexts, but carrying the same heartbeat of forbidden truth. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a medieval scholar poring over dusty manuscripts, convinced he's about to unlock immortality, only to discover that the secret formula is essentially a reminder to live with balance and discipline. Eternity, it seems, always came with homework. So, did the knowledge survive Egypt's fall? Not in its original temples, perhaps, but in fragments scattered across cultures, hidden in myths, encoded in philosophy, and whispered through mystery schools. The wisdom of Thoth was too resilient to vanish. It transformed, waiting patiently for seekers in every age to rediscover its eternal rhythm. Though the temples of Egypt have long since fallen silent, whispers of Thoth's wisdom continue to echo in modern times through secret societies and esoteric orders. These groups, often shrouded in mystery, claim to preserve fragments of the ancient teachings, rituals of initiation, symbols of transformation, and philosophies of cosmic balance. Organizations such as the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and Hermetic orders have drawn inspiration from Egyptian lore. Their rituals often reference the ibis-headed god, the scales of Mat, or the principle of as above, so below. These echoes suggest that the forbidden wisdom of Thoth's priests did not vanish, but was carried forward, disguised in new traditions. The Hermetic tradition, in particular, directly links back to Thoth through Hermes Trismegistus, the Greco-Egyptian figure believed to embody both Hermes and Thoth. Modern Hermetic societies study texts like the Emerald Tablets and the Corpus Hermeticum, treating them as guides to spiritual transformation. In their teachings, the soul's journey, cosmic law, and the pursuit of immortality remain central, just as they were in Egypt's hidden chambers. Secret societies often emphasize initiation, secrecy, and symbolism, mirroring the practices of Thoth's priesthood. Candidates undergo rituals of silence, symbolic death and rebirth, and the study of hidden texts. The goal is not worldly power, but inner transformation, echoing the priest's belief that true immortality lies in the refinement of the soul. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a modern initiate nervously reciting an oath in a candlelit lodge, only to realize halfway through that he is essentially promising not to spill the same secrets the Egyptians guarded thousands of years ago. Eternity, it seems, has a long memory. For modern secret societies, Thoth is more than a myth. He is a symbol of eternal wisdom, the archetype of the scribe who records truth across ages, whether through Hermetic philosophy, Masonic ritual, or Rosicrucian symbolism. The influence of Thoth's priests continues to shape seekers today, proving that forbidden knowledge never truly disappears. It transforms, waiting for those ready to carry its burden. The priests of Thoth carried wisdom that was never meant for the public eye. Behind the myths and rituals shared with ordinary citizens lay deeper truths they believed could shatter the balance of society if revealed too soon. Among these hidden teachings was the knowledge that the soul was eternal, not bound by death, and that, through discipline and alignment with cosmic law, immortality could be achieved. They knew that the stars dictated cycles of life, that rulers were not divine arbiters of time, but merely participants in cosmic rhythms. They understood that symbols and chants were not just prayers, but formulas capable of altering consciousness and bridging realms. What they didn't want the world to know was that power lay not in kings or temples, but in the individual soul. If ordinary people realized they could access eternity through discipline and wisdom, the hierarchies of Egypt would collapse. The priests guarded this truth fiercely, disguising it in myths, hiding it in scrolls, and locking it away in chambers. Legends whisper that fragments of this forbidden knowledge survived, encoded in Hermetic texts, echoed in mystery schools, and carried into secret societies. But the full truth, the complete formula of immortality and cosmic balance, remained hidden, waiting for seekers who could bear its weight. Humor sneaks in when we imagine a villager asking a priest for the secret of eternity, only to be told a charming story about planting crops in season, a gentle way of saying, "not yet." And so, the greatest secret of the Priests of Thoth was not a spell or a scroll, but the reminder that wisdom is a burden. It must be carried with silence, discipline, and reverence, lest it unravel the very fabric of the cosmos. The story now drifts into quiet shadows, like incense fading in a temple chamber. The priests close their scrolls, the stars wheel silently above, and the secrets of eternity remain guarded in the hush of night. Sleep well, seeker of wisdom. Good night.